So, the past 3 weeks I have been watching Sam Raimi's original Spider-Man trilogy in the cinemas, and if you've been following my community posts, you'll see I posted something on each film. Each one of these films are incredible as expected, but as I was sat there in the cinema, I kept asking myself this one question: what is it that makes these films so successful and so iconic? And I think I finally got down to the answer. If you were to ask me what is missing from modern day Spider-Man, then I'd have to say Uncle Ben, which in itself is kind of a crazy statement considering how integral the character of Uncle Ben is to Spider-Man. Now of course Uncle Ben isn't in Tom Holland's MCU trilogy or Insomniac Spider-Man games, and yes, I mean everyone knows the story of Uncle Ben. It's a tale as old as time, so it's understandable why he's missing from a lot of modern adaptations of Spider-Man, and in some cases it does work. Insomniac Spider-Man, it works because there is mentions of Uncle Ben. You've got his gravestone that you can visit in the game, you've got collectibles.
The last ball game Uncle Ben ever took me to. I need to get this framed. I could really use his advice now.
You've got dialogue moments between Aunt May and Peter talking about Ben. There's photos of Ben, and it works because you can feel his presence throughout the game, even if it is small. Now in the case of MCU Spider-Man, I do think excluding Uncle Ben kinda, makes the trilogy suffer. I mean, I love the MCU trilogy. Oh, no, that's a lie. I don't like Far From Home. But what I will say is they've kind of rectified that mistake by having Aunt May die in No Way Home. So going forward, there is something to think back on whenever Peter's in a situation. But if we're just talking about the first initial Spider-Man MCU trilogy, then Uncle Ben's presence not being there, it does affect it, because in Homecoming and Far From Home, there's nothing, and especially Homecoming, there's nothing that you can really, think back on and like when it comes to being responsible. And he's kind of just doing things all over the place. And I do like Homecoming as a film, but I always think, does Uncle Ben have any effect on this version of Peter? Because it doesn't feel like it. And it's strange because we know that Uncle Ben did exist in the MCU and he did die the original way that he always dies. So with that being said, it must have left some sort of impact, but we never get to see it. And I know Tony Stark fills that role, but the trouble is with that is Tony Stark is a billionaire and is not relatable to Peter at all. Peter's a broke kid or working class. And that's what Uncle Ben was. Uncle Ben was that working class everyday man that is similar to the people that Spider-Man ends up saving every day. And that's what makes Uncle Ben so integral to Spider-Man's character. And with this line of thinking, it led me back to the question that I was trying to answer, which is what makes the Raimi Trilogy so iconic and so good. And I think the key to it is Uncle Ben. Because as I sat there in the theatre watching each of these films, there was always one thing that kept reoccurring, and that was Uncle Ben, and Uncle Ben's death, to be more specific, and how it affects Peter. And because it's present in each one of the films, it creates a sort of through line between each film. It makes it feel like a whole package rather than just separate films in a trilogy. It's almost like the bow that ties the whole package together, You watch Spider-Man 1 and you see Uncle Ben die and Peter trying to grapple with that. And then in Spider-Man 2, when he's losing his powers and he loses his will to be Spider-Man, he has that flashback with Uncle Ben telling him, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to live my own life as Peter Parker. And then of course in Spider-Man 3, we get to see who actually killed Uncle Ben. But the reason why him being in these films makes them so great is because he acts as sort of a catalyst of the overall message that the film is trying to tell. So for example, Spider-Man 1, him dying is the domino that kickstarts Peter becoming Spider-Man and becoming a hero. And in Spider-Man 2, Uncle Ben represents the responsibility Peter took on being Spider-Man. And so, obviously, when we see that flashback, it's almost like a visual reminder to remember the responsibility you have to the people of New York as Spider-Man. And it calls back to the original lesson that Uncle Ben taught Spider-Man, or taught Peter Parker in Spider-Man 1, about great power also comes great responsibility. And of course, in Spider-Man 3, we see that Sandman accidentally kills Uncle Ben, and this sort of acts as a catalyst for Peter to forgive himself and to forgive Sandman for killing Uncle Ben. And it drives forward the message of forgiveness and not letting ego consume you. And Uncle Ben's death, or re-mention of that death in Spider-Man 3, reaffirms that message that the film's trying to tell. And because of that, like I said before, all the films feel connected because it all links back to that one moment when Uncle Ben was killed. And so as you sat there watching the Raimi Trilogy, you can always feel Uncle Ben's presence and the impact it left on Peter. And it's kind of like the baseline for those films, and it's the reason why they feel so complete and feel like such a whole package. I mean, look at the Amazing Spider-Man films. We see Uncle Ben in the first film and we see him die, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure he's mentioned in the second film. But obviously you could tell with the Amazing Spider-Man films there was more story to be told and they never got to do it, so it kind of never really worked. But even in those two films you can still kind of feel Uncle Ben's presence, and I feel like that's what makes Spider-Man's character so compelling, is because every night when he goes out to fight crime, or every day should I say, he is doing it out of the memory of Uncle Ben, and to live by his words of great power comes great responsibility. And it's, like I said, the foundation of the character, and I feel like when you take that away, it kind of muddies the water of the character. And the only successful adaptation, I think, which has removed Uncle Ben, is the Insomniac version of Spider-Man, because they've not completely smeared his name from the universe. They've added little Easter eggs, little mentions to know that yes, Uncle Ben did die in this universe, and yes, it did affect Peter, and this is why he's doing this. This is why he's been doing this for the past 8 years, and it drives him. Picture it like this. Imagine if we had a Batman whose parents didn't die. It just doesn't make sense. Or like a Bruce Wayne that didn't care that his parents had died, but still became Batman. It doesn't make sense because it drives Batman. And I feel like Uncle Ben has that same power over Spider-Man, and I feel like it's been lost in a lot of modern day Spider-Man media. Not even just the films, just in everything in general, to be honest. And I think the genius of the Raimi Trilogy is that they understood how integral Uncle Ben is, and they use that to advantage to connect all three films and make it feel seamless. So yeah, that is my theory, or answer, depending on how you want to look at it, on the question of why the Raimi Trilogy is incredible. So if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, make sure you subscribe, and let me know down in the comments why you think the Raimi Trilogy was so amazing, or if you thought it was bad. Let me know if you thought it was bad, and I'll catch you in the next video.